Well, a mental health crisis, a crime wave, police departments that we can't keep filled with police officers because we don't pay them enough, because they don't have top cover from their leadership. And what do we decide to do? I say we. What do the Democrats decide to do? They decide to put a homeless shelter full of drug addicts and criminals right next to an elementary school. I was absolutely speechless when I saw this. We're going to talk about how we don't just have a problem in the big cities. We are now importing criminals. We have a crime problem that's bad enough as it is, but now we are importing criminals. And who are the ones that are suffering? The most vulnerable among us, our children, our young people. These are the ones that our elected representatives are actually putting in harm's way intentionally. Let's talk about that. I'm Jared. This is Continue Freedom. Okay, welcome back to Continue Freedom. So I saw this article, and that got me obviously down a rabbit hole. I mean, it's very easy to rabbit hole these days. But when I saw this, I was absolutely speechless. Parents obviously are outraged as the city plans to open a homeless shelter next to a Manhattan elementary school. There's so many homeless people suffering from mental illness, and sometimes those people who are mentally ill can be aggressive, a concerned parent said. Do you think when you've got drugs pouring across our southern border, fueling this mental health crisis, people are on fentanyl, crack, meth, everything you could think of. And yet we're going to take these drug addicts and these criminals, and we're going to put them next to the most vulnerable in our population, which are our children, the ones that we should be protecting the most. The New York Post reported that the homeless shelter will be equipped with 106 beds, and it's set to be situated right next to the Peck Slip School, just 5 feet away from the school's doors. Community board members and local officials were notified about the decision on June 13th. The Department of Social Services unveiled a blueprint that would convert a former Hampton Inn located at 320 Pearl Street into a low-barrier homeless facility, meaning criminal records and sobriety records could be lifted. The shelter is scheduled to open in the fall when schools return to session. They seem to want to push this through when no one is around. We recognize that many neighborhoods have shelters, but not attached to a school, an outraged parent told the outlet. Yeah, of course. Why? Because these people live in New York. And New York is a big city. There's always going to be crime in a big city. But we're seeing, this is not, things like this, 1 dead and 2 injured after an out-of-control daytime stabbing spree. So these people walking down the street, poor folks, and they're attacked. A 38-year-old, where was it? A 38-year-old man is dead following an out-of-control stabbing in New York City, as if there's a controlled stabbing. But 2 other victims, a 31-year-old man and a 52-year-old woman, are recovering from their injuries. The suspect is a 30-year-old man. He was taken into custody following the attack. However, no charges have yet been filed against him. Authorities also discovered a cutting instrument at the scene. It took place around 5:45 p.m. Sunday evening near Avenue A in East 14th Street. So this same area, Mayor Eric Adams said that the block is disgusting and, he's going to do something about it. But as is typical with Democrat politicians, has he done anything about it? No. Is he going to do anything about it? Probably not. Because they're too worried, the Democrat Party, they're too worried about this, right? I was actually bringing this up earlier than I intended to. They were talking about, interrupts a panel on this 12-year-old girl who was brutally murdered by an illegal immigrant. They step in, they correct the language. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, what are we seeing? We're seeing a 13-year-old girl raped. This one was in New York. We see a Houston girl who was allegedly killed by immigrants. We see a mother in Houston killed by illegal immigrants. That's what we're seeing on a daily basis. We're seeing criminals that have been imported into this country, overwhelming a system that is already having trouble maintaining maintaining control on the crime that's happening in places like New York. And what do the Democrats worry about? Putting a homeless shelter full of these drug addicts and these deviants next to an elementary school and correcting your dadgum grammar. I think I realize that a lot of people, they probably just see Democrat, and there's a lot of Democrats running unopposed in places like New York. But we need the people that are going to step up and maybe try to enforce some law, maybe try to take a more conservative approach, a law and order approach, because it's not happening in New York. It's not happening in New York. And part of it is the hive mindset. So the hive mindset is a very real problem. They took advantage of that during the Trump trial, right? The hive mindset is people that are all around each other. They start to think in kind of a homogenous way. They all perceive the world in the same way because they're bouncing ideas and their conversations are happening almost in a vacuum. But when you have conversations happening in a vacuum and you truly think that all these people are dreamers and that all these people coming in are they're just escaping persecution no, some of them are rapists. Some of them are criminals. Some of them will destroy the lives of the most vulnerable among us because they don't have the same shared values that we have. They don't have the same understanding of law and order that we do. These people are coming from the Middle East. They are coming from North Africa. They're coming from, war-torn countries. They are coming from places where, rape and subjugation of women is commonplace in their culture. So if stupid stuff like this starts making its way into your neighborhoods, maybe you need to say, okay, where are the conservatives out there? Where are the law and order candidates out there? Where are the people who will actually come in here and fix our neighborhoods? Not because you've been voting for the same thing over and over and over and over again. And how has that worked out for you? Not so well. This is why Democrat strongholds have just become, just lawless hellscapes in so many instances. And I truly feel bad for the people in those areas because a lot of them, and it's not that they're ignorant, it's just that they aren't presented with opposing information, or they're told that any information that opposes their worldview is evil. But when it comes down to law and order candidates, when it comes down to, arresting these people, when it comes down to, keeping them, protecting your children, putting armed guards in schools, they clutch their pearls and they shudder at the thought of having armed guards in schools. Well, when you're putting homeless shelters right next to their schools, maybe that's the first place that you need to look. But maybe you need to find elected representatives for your city who have your best interest at heart, your children's best interest at heart, and they would have taken a 5-minute look at Google Maps and seen that there's an elementary school next to this place where we're going to put our criminals, and maybe they would have opposed it. But they don't think that way. Because you're privileged, right? Your kids get to go to school. You're not a drug addict. You're not a criminal. They see the criminals as the least among you, not your children. They see the criminals as the most vulnerable, not you, the law-abiding citizen. So those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. Love you guys. God bless you.